We tend to think of AI tools like ChatGPT as these totally neutral machines, just pure logic, no emotion, no agenda. But what if they have a built-in point of view, a specific flavor that subtly shapes every answer they give?
Does your AI have an accent? And no, I'm not talking about how it spells or if it uses slang. We're talking about something way deeper, a hidden worldview.
This isn't just about color versus color. It's about the fundamental way AI frames ideas and gives advice. It's a whole worldview, and it's baked right into the system. The reason for this accent isn't some big conspiracy. It's all about what the AI was fed, its training diet. Researchers figure that a massive 50 to 70% of ChatGPT's English data comes from US sources. The tool feels global, but its roots, they're planted firmly in American soil.
What does this American accent actually sound like? Let's get into what this bias actually looks and feels like.
It shows up in some really specific ways. If you ask about your rights, chances are it'll start talking about the US First Amendment. Or if you ask it to define a big concept like freedom, you're going to get a very American flavored answer. Even the language it uses tends to push ideas like individualism and competition, which are pretty big in American culture. This kind of influence feels different. It's deeper than just watching a Hollywood movie. And it's led some people to ask a really powerful, maybe even uncomfortable question. Is this a new kind of colonization? Colonization these days doesn't always involve ships and flags. It can be about our minds. It's what some call digital colonization. That's when one country's way of thinking, its institutions, its values, just quietly becomes the default for everyone, pushing local ways of seeing the world to the side. And this really gets to the heart of it. When the very tools we're starting to use to think are built in someone else's image, what does that mean for our own culture, for our own sovereignty? And the risks here, they're real, but they're also super subtle. You might start picking up American phrases without even realizing it. Or you start thinking that US systems like privatized healthcare are just the normal way to do things. And because the AI sounds so darn confident, we can start to accept its culturally specific answers as just objective facts. So this all sounds pretty serious, but is it just a theory? Well, let's move from ideas to actual evidence. A recent academic study put this whole AI accent thing to the test to see if you could actually measure it. They asked ChatGPT hundreds of geographically ambiguous questions. Stuff like, what are my rights if I'm arrested? Or how do I apply for financial aid? But, and this is the key part, they never said which country they were in. They wanted to see where the AI would naturally default. And the results? They were pretty stark. Nearly 4 out of 10 times, 39.3% to be exact, ChatGPT just defaulted to a US answer. It basically assumed the user was American unless you told it otherwise. But what's really fascinating is where that bias shows up. It's not spread out evenly. When it came to culture and media, it defaulted to the US an incredible 93.3% of the time. For political questions, still a huge 70%. But then, for something like geography, it dropped all the way to 0. So this bias is really concentrated in certain topics. This study, it was run out of Canada. And across all those hundreds of questions, you want to guess how many times ChatGPT defaulted to a Canadian framework? 0. Zilch. Not a single time. So this isn't just random noise. This is a one-way street. The study also found something they called tiered neutrality. It turns out that people on the free plans, especially heavy users who get bumped down to a less powerful model, were actually getting more US bias. It's almost like geographic nuance is a premium feature you have to pay for. All of this leads to is the most mind-bending part of this whole study, what the researchers called the Trojan horse paradox. Here's the paradox. On a structural level, the AI is thinking like an American. It's assuming US laws, US agencies, US systems are the default. But then, on a values level, it often talks in a way that feels really familiar to a lot of us outside the US, saying it supports things like public health care or collective responsibility. And that is the Trojan horse. Those familiar-sounding values make us trust the answer. It feels right. And that trust is what lets all the foreign American-specific details sneak right into our thinking completely under the radar. Why does this Trojan thing matter? To you or to me or to anyone using these tools outside of the United States? Well, the impact is actually huge. It chips away at our understanding of our own local systems. think about students risking learning the wrong civics. And remember, this is not like just passively watching TV. This is embedding a foreign logic right into the tools we use to work, to learn, and to make decisions every single day.
But the good news is we're not helpless here. We can absolutely push back, and it all starts with just being aware. First, use context-rich prompts. Always tell the AI something like, in the Canadian context, or from a British perspective. Second, question the output. Look for those hidden assumptions. And bigger picture, we need to push for more diverse training data and promote a whole new kind of AI literacy, one that teaches all of us how to spot these sneaky, powerful biases.
Because it really all boils down to this one final and pretty heavy question. When the tools that help us think are built in someone else's image, whose thoughts are we really thinking? It's definitely something to chew on the next time you fire up your AI for a little help.